Hello, business building warrior. Welcome to Silent Sales Machine Radio, the podcast for e-commerce warriors like you. If you're trying to use the internet to launch or grow a serious business online, multiple streams of income, even perhaps, this is the right show for you. Typically, most episodes we feature an interview with a very real person from our community, real stories, transparently telling about the struggles, the joys, the victories, the challenges of building a beautiful business using the internet creatively. We start most of our students, I'd say 95% of all the success stories around here, started on Amazon. And they follow the proven Amazon course training, which is our flagship training. There's a link at silentjimdotcom to the proven Amazon course. You can go check it out. For $39 a month, you get all the knowledge of our large leadership team. There's over 100 of us that contributed to the content in that course. And we give you what you need when you need it. It's not teaching you everything you might need in case things happen someday. It's not just in case education where we're just filling your head with all kinds of knowledge you don't need. We don't do that here. We give you what you need as your next step. No matter where you are now, we're going to plug you in and give you what you need as your next step so we can step by step take you through this journey. We've done it for so many others. And like I said, we have hundreds of interviews with those successful students on our other episodes. Just scroll back in time. You'll see what I'm talking about if you're new. But today, we're spending some time with one of our favorite sponsors around here who has helped literally thousands of Amazon sellers in the Amazon selling community. He's very well known and well respected as an Amazon policy and Amazon account health expert. And as a bonus, he's also a lawyer. So if you ever need legal services related to defending yourself in any way against an accusation, let's say someone falsely accused you of selling counterfeit, what do you do? Well, you got a lawyer in your pocket, and he can help you out with those kind of scenarios as well. His name is Jeff Schick. He's a great friend of the show. He's actually got a team that's comprised of people from this community that have kind of evolved into being policy experts of their own. It's a great team. It's a great service. You can put him on retainer for a few dollars a month, and he handles all your Amazon policy and legal challenges. It's a beautiful thing. jeffschick.com is the website. We're going to spend some time with him talking about, as we're coming up to the end of the year, what are some things we should be thinking about? There's some really important things that should be on your radar. Boxes you're going to wish you'd checked if you don't check them before the end of the year. Some really important stuff. What are the latest developments, like with Section 3 suspensions? You've probably heard about the scary Section 3 suspensions. 99% of people breeze right through it, but all you typically hear are the horror stories. Well, what can go wrong with those reviews when Amazon says, hey, we need to verify your identity. We need to verify that you're only selling legitimate inventory. How can you make certain that you're going to breeze right through those Section 3 reviews if it ever happens? We talk about that a little bit. We spend some time talking about how easy it is to make sure that you're only selling authorized inventory on Amazon. Some people tend to get way more confused than they should be about knowing what is an authorized inventory source and what isn't. We're going to completely cover that issue today, and it's not complicated at all, really, once you understand the issue, as well as what are some cases that Jeff is seeing? What are some trends that Jeff is seeing right now on his team in regards to the Amazon selling community? And the good news is, from my perspective, this is my conclusion after spending an hour or so with Jeff, plus we spent some time before we even hit record. Here's my conclusion. Amazon is in the process of clarifying policies. That's amazing. I love when that happens. So we know when we are and aren't violating a policy. That's great. We know where the lines are in the sand. And they're being very consistent about enforcing the rules when you cross those lines. And they're letting the good guys back in once they demonstrate that no line was crossed, when they're accused of having crossed the line. All that to say this, Amazon's making a lot more sense these days. From my vantage point, Jeff echoes that sentiment. That's really great news. Having a clean Amazon seller account has never been a more valuable asset than it is now, because they're getting really good at finding the people who are breaking the rules and getting them off the platform. That's great news. They're very fair about applying the policies now. The people who are cutting corners don't have an advantage anymore, is another way to say the same thing. That's all such great news. And we can be on the same team as Amazon, build a beautiful business. The future is very, very bright for those of us who understand these things and use that platform for what it's designed to do, which is serve the buying customers with excellence, giving them the great products. And our job around here, the business model we're most excited about on Amazon, especially if you're new, is helping Amazon fill the underserved shelf space at their hundreds of warehouses around the US. Huge, wide open opportunity. We love teaching people how to do it. But let's jump over and spend some time with Jeff, see what's on his mind as he's dealing with thousands of cases from Amazon sellers. And he's seeing what the trends are. I love spending time with him to get the scoop on what Amazon's thinking these days. Enjoy the interview. So welcome back, Jeff. Good to see you, man.
Nice to see you too. Thanks for having me here.
Love having you on the show. And as I probably mentioned in the intro, you're here about once a week, for those little mini snippets, but we thought, let's get Jeff on for a longer conversation. What are we seeing in the world of Amazon and policy? And you're dealing with a lot of folks. We hear lots of great things about your clients who are working with you on retainer monthly. But what are the big trends? What are you seeing coming across your desk these days?
So I see a lot of things with Amazon is just, enforcement of well-known policies, as well as, enforcement of gray area policies. So we're seeing a lot of them just hunkering down on, these are the rules. We expect you to follow it. And if you don't play by the rules, then we're not going to have you on the platform. So, with that being said, there's a lot of rules that they do care about. Supply chain is consistently number one for them. The number one thing they're under fire for right now is counterfeit products being sold on their platform. And so the rules on supply chain authenticity and buying from good sources, those are there to protect consumers. And it's also to protect you from other sellers, because if you're buying your products at, Walmart or Best Buy, and you know that you're selling an authentic product, it hurts you if another seller is buying them off of the back of a truck and it's stolen goods, or if it's imported from China and it's completely fake. And now they're taking the buy box with their, stolen or counterfeit product. So,
and you can't tell a counterfeit. Sometimes people think they can tell a counterfeit by looking at it. Like if someone gave me $100 counterfeit bill, I'd recognize it instantly. Well, with counterfeit products, that's just not the case. Sometimes they are perfect replications of the real thing. And you think, oh, I found this sweet website that could save all this money and sell it. No, that's what Amazon is helping us, the legitimate sellers. Here's the way I look at it, Jeff, and correct me if I'm wrong, but as a guy who really monitors the supply chain of the stuff that I sell, like I'm only going to authorized retailers, authorized websites, wholesalers, distributors, that the brand would say, yes, that is a legitimate way to buy our product. If I only go there, it really is kind of an unfair advantage for guys who would buy 1,000 units off the back of a truck. I think they're getting, Bob's bargain basement bin is what I always say, like you just don't know. There's no legitimate trail there. And I kind of like seeing sellers get punished when they try to undercut me on those ASINs and think they've got an advantage now. So I cheer for these kind of changes, right? Does that make sense? I mean, I asked you this before we started recording, but I wouldn't mind diving a little deeper into it. You've got a large book of business. You've got a lot of Amazon sellers that you represent. How many of them have a case right now where you're left scratching your head going, okay, Amazon isn't making any sense here. They're just squashing a guy because they can. Does that happen?
It does, but not as often as people make it out to be. There's people in the forums that post about how awful Amazon is, and you assume that it must be this terrible place and that Amazon can just do whatever it wants. That's partially true. I mean, they can restrict sellers from selling certain brands if they find an operational reason. So for instance, if they find that a lot of sellers are selling counterfeit Clinique products, then they have the operational need to block sellers from selling Clinique unless they're ungated through, enhanced verification programs.
Yeah. So raise the standard. Makes total sense. Raise the standard. Yeah.
Right. And keep in mind, a lot of people forget, things that are small and light are very easy to counterfeit. So like, sellers are disproportionately facing Section 3 supply chain audits in the cosmetic category and supplements category. But it makes perfect sense when you think about those are products that are expensive. Something that could be, fit into a small padded envelope could go easily for $100. And so it makes sense that they would, restrict that, because the cost to make a fake version of it is, could be pennies on the dollar,
Right. And you could fit a bunch of them in a container from China right?
Right. And
If a counterfeiter is willing to go to those lengths, yeah, you want to get as much money per square foot as you can coming across the ocean. Makes
right.
total sense. The brands that get locked down, there's a story behind it every time. The ridiculous theory that floats around that I like to counter every chance I see it is that Amazon just doesn't like little sellers. They don't want them. They're trying to get rid of them. Like, that's ludicrous. They represent 40% or so of the catalog.
Right.
They're recruiting them actively. If they wanted to get rid of them, all they have to do is just suspend them for no reason. And you just don't see wide swaths of cases like that. There's a reason.
Yeah.
Consistently, there's a reason. That's why I love checking in with you, because you kind of verify that without naming any names. Like, you kind of go through and the cases make sense. What are some cases you're seeing that kind of illustrate where we're going and what kind of things Amazon is, pulling the trigger on them, when it comes to suspensions?
So, I mean, they're definitely suspending for the cases where people are in the gray area, right? So we saw that with the bundle policies.
Mhm.
People that made, unfortunately, there's a lot of sellers we've worked with on the bundles that the bundles you could very clearly see Amazon's position. I'm selling, this name brand product with this little 25-cent item and trying to claim that that's the most valuable piece in the bundle, and that wasn't a realistic thing. So we've got, so we've certainly got, enforcement there that Amazon has had. We also have, enforcements lately from Amazon of sellers doing things the wrong way. So, like, for instance, you go in and you might have fulfillment by merchant inventory, and you receive an order and you immediately buy a shipping label. So far, this is all on track. But the only problem is the one step I left out was to verify that you actually have the product in your possession. And so sellers, might be, they might get 100 merchant orders a day, for instance. I'm just making up numbers, and they print out 100 shipping labels. They go through their warehouse and they start pulling the items off the shelf, and then they get to the end and they figure out that, like, oh, we didn't have 10 of these, and so they go in now, and the correct way would be to try to void it out, mark it as out of stock, and take the hit to your fulfillment performance metrics. Instead, some sellers have tried to go around that, and they go and they still mark it as shipped, and then they just basically put in a refund request and say item lost in transit. And when Amazon then goes and verifies that that shipping label was never used, that looks very bad on the seller. In fact, it looks like fraud. And so then they suspend the sellers for.
You're blaming the carrier for losing items that were never even picked up by the carrier. So the carrier is going to obviously say, no, that seller's lying. Amazon doesn't want lying, deceptive sellers on their platform. Yeah, that is fraudulent behavior. Make sure you're only selling stuff you got. That's kind of rule number one of staying within policy. That's why they don't like drop shippers, right?
Right.
Selling all this stuff you don't have, and when you go to ship some of it, oh, that doesn't exist anymore. Sorry, cancel order.
Yeah.
They don't want that experience for their sellers, for their customers on the platform. Makes total sense. Yeah. So if anything, I'm excited by some of the changes that I'm seeing at Amazon, because it seems to me the gray areas are shrinking because they're clarifying policies, and their enforcement is more consistent. They have a reason for doing what they're doing, and the good guys come on back in. They ask for the receipts. You got legitimate receipts from legitimate authorized distributors or retailers or wholesalers, you're good to go. Inconvenient couple of weeks, but welcome back. We love good sellers. You don't, you've been buying from Bob's Bargain Bin Basement, selling counterfeits that look like the real thing. Not good enough. They're making more sense lately, is what I see.
Yeah. Oh, another thing interesting that we've seen, they're holding the person who submits documentation responsible for edits to the documents. So if you submit a forged document that somebody else forged and then gave to you, you're responsible as the submitter of that document. So it's kind of an interesting thing. We have some of the cases we worked on. And so if your manufacturer says that they're redacting information from the test reports or from their invoices or whatever they may be providing to you, even though they're the manufacturer, they don't have the right to alter safety documentation or test reports or anything that has to do with a regulated activity like safety. So, like, we had a case where a seller was told by the manufacturer, we've redacted information from this report. The seller submitted it, and now they're suspended because of the brand doing that. So, just to reiterate to people, if you know that somebody's giving you something that's been altered, do not submit it, even if it's not you doing the alteration.
Yeah, I mean, some of the most egregious cases that I recall of things like that were when people would completely make up documents
Oh yeah,
and submit
that too.
invoices from orders they never placed and that sort of thing, or changing that quantity 10 to quantity 100, with a
Right.
little creative. When Amazon follows up and sees that you've been deceptive in any way, or even that the person that provided you the paperwork, the manufacturer, was deceptive in any way, you're going to face a penalty for that. Yeah. But, I mean, again, that's just defining where the lines are and defining what enforcement of those policies will be if you break the policy.
Right.
I think Amazon is being clearer than they've ever been before. The gray fuzzy areas are vanishing. The enforcement policies are clarified.
Right.
And I'll say this, having a squeaky clean Amazon seller account is a more valuable asset now than it's ever been before. And it will continue to be more valuable because
Right.
they've raised the bar a little bit.
Exactly. And yeah, there's, as they raise the bar, although they're not raising it that much, they're just,
They're
like they're
clarifying
just
where it
saying,
is. Yeah.
yeah, it makes it a better, platform for the good sellers, that are following the rules. Because the last thing that you want to be doing is competing with, someone whose VA is making false documents up, So that was another thing they've clarified. If you or somebody on your account that you've authorized to conduct business on your seller account submits fraudulent information, you're responsible as the business owner for that fraud. Simple enough, makes total sense, but it's something that they've clarified, because we have had a couple cases now where sellers just gave their VAs carte blanche authority to submit whatever they wanted, and it turned out that some of the VAs have, especially if they're from less reputable countries like Pakistan, they go in and they just submit false stuff altogether.
Right. You've got to be careful with who it is you allow into your account and how they represent you with Amazon for sure. Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think all this bodes well for the future of the Amazon selling opportunity. There's a reason behind the big brand suspensions, and even with Q4, it's always made sense to me. I've never been confused. Like when Q4 approaches, and Amazon starts locking down the big toy brands, it gets harder to get approved for Lego, for example. Only the
Right.
experienced sellers sell Lego. That makes sense to me. You don't want to ruin anyone's Christmas with counterfeit or a late or undelivered product or a crushed box, or like, we're not going to ruin any little kid's Christmas. We're going to lock down, and only our most reliable, most trusted sellers get to sell the hottest, fastest moving, most profitable brands for that 6-8 weeks. And then they kind of
Right.
relax back down, let in a new wave of sellers, weed through, find the unethical ones, kick them out. The ones who don't pay attention to the rules, kick them out. And you're left with a new batch of good, reliable sellers. I mean, it makes sense to me on paper. And
Right.
again, I think they're getting better at what they do. You've seen some resources lately that were of interest. I think some people might want to go check it out. And I haven't seen it yet myself, but you were talking about a new video that Amazon had put out about how they're tackling the counterfeit problems. Break that
Right.
down for me, and maybe we'll stick it in the show notes so people can go check it out as well.
Yeah, it's a CNBC special report about Amazon's new counterfeit crimes unit, or what they're calling the CCU division. It's actually a division within Amazon Legal. So it's run by attorneys at Amazon, but then they work with teams across the globe who are in the seller performance and investigation services that are looking for counterfeit products. So when what they're doing now, it's kind of interesting. They're actually actively finding counterfeit rings. They're working with the brands. That I didn't realize this, but they talked about it in the video. Amazon pays for all the litigation. So Amazon hires the attorney and pays the legal bills. And it basically is, XYZ brand and Amazon.com Inc. versus, counterfeit sellers, John Doe 1 through 100. And they go after them and sue them for selling counterfeit products. So Amazon is, actively taking a role. But beyond that, they've got thousands of employees now dedicated towards finding counterfeit products and taking those sellers off the platform.
Yeah. And not to make anyone nervous here, because this is a fairly easy problem.
Right.
Void.
Yeah. I mean, as long as you don't buy from Discord groups, if your invoice comes with another seller's first and last name on it, you know that it's not a valid invoice. If you're buying from, a site that has, spelling typos and all sorts of, mistakes in the
If your
in the
wholesaler has an
website,
affiliate program.
your wholesaler has an affiliate program, any number of things, that are red flags, then obviously it's a sign, don't buy from them.
Yeah, well,
And
what
of
I've
course,
said, I think the simplest clarifying thing, and sorry to cut you off, but just to cut
yeah,
straight to it, what I've been saying for a few years now, and this is something you first told me, is ask the brand. Those three
right,
words will keep you out of trouble. Ask
correct.
the brand. So you're getting ready to sell Lego
Yeah,
and you're getting ready to buy it from Bob's Bargain Bin Basement. Hop on lego.com, find the contact us form, say, hey, I'm getting ready to buy your product from this website, from this wholesaler, from this distributor, from this retailer. Are they legitimate? Is there any chance that this might be counterfeit? You don't have to tell them you're a reseller. Just tell them,
right.
I'm getting ready to buy your product. Is this a legitimate way to buy your product? And within Lego, I actually did this. I wanted to verify that Kroger had legitimate authorized chain
Yeah,
of Lego. Like Kroger's big, and I assume everything in there's legit. And come to find out, yeah, it pretty much is. I've never found an exception. Kroger only
right.
sells through the authorized channel. But I just wanted to verify because I was going to buy a bunch of
Yeah.
really cheap Legos from these guys. They came back within half an hour. Yep, they're authorized channel.
Okay.
Buy
Yeah, that's
yeah.
exactly.
So
It's
I
the
was
easiest
safe.
way.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
easy, so easy to stay clean.
right. And it's just such a crucial step that a lot of sellers skip because they're afraid to ask the brand because they think the brand will tell them you can't sell our products. Which again, like you said, you don't have to tell them you're a reseller.
No,
If
you're a
it's
buyer, consumer. You're a
yeah,
consumer.
I mean, you're just as likely to ask the question when you're buying, your child a present as you would be when you're buying, hundreds of units for reselling. It's the same question that most parents are going to ask. So it's not a big deal to most of these companies. They experience it probably relatively regularly.
Yeah, because when Amazon gets a complaint and someone accuses you of selling a counterfeit, whatever, they're going to call
Mm-hmm.
the brand and say, I've got a seller here who bought from, look at the invoice, Bob's Bargain Bin Basement. Is that a legitimate authorized distributor, wholesale, liquidator, or a
Yeah,
retailer for your product? And the brand is going to say, no, we've never heard of those guys.
right.
And then you're in trouble as a seller because your invoice or receipt is of no use in that case. You might as well have printed it on a scrap of paper in your own office because no
Right.
one's heard of that company. The brand
Exactly.
doesn't know of that company. It's such a simple thing, but it causes so much confusion. So I'm glad we're spending some time really clarifying because there's nothing to be afraid of
Right.
unless you're out there, you know, buying the cheapest stuff you can find from wherever you can find it. Like you said, Discord groups. I haven't heard that one, but it makes total sense.
Yeah.
Like, got 1,000
There's a
units for $1 each of, the latest Mattel hot toy.
yeah.
Yeah, dude, no.
There's a new distributor that we just busted as a fake wholesaler that unfortunately seller is suspended over that was using Harry Potter characters in the name. And people didn't realize, but I've been reading the Harry Potter books. So I picked up on it. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And people were still just buying from this company thinking that it must be real. And no, it's not real. They're just another scam organization trying to separate sellers from their dollars.
Yeah. It's something I love about having you guys on retainer is when you do hit one of those, man, these guys look legit. I'm just going to shoot a quick email over to Jeff and his team.
Yeah.
Help me. Are these guys legit? Right. So you can either reach out to the brand if you don't have Jeff on retainer, or just reach out to Jeff and his team, jeffschick.com, put him on retainer, a few bucks a month, and they cover all this, including if you do get suspended, they're going to help you through that process as well. And it's covered in the retainer. Right. So that's what
Exactly.
our team typically does is we just shoot you guys an email like, hey,
Yeah.
what do you guys think of this? And you've talked us out of, I love being able to share with the listening audience. You've talked us out of probably 4 or 5 major initiatives that we were starting to investigate. Like, well, and you're always hesitant, like, because you're taking money out
Right.
of our pocket and taking a lot of excitement out of the conversation. That's what lawyers do for a living, though, right? Kind of
Yeah,
throw
we risk
water on good
manage.
ideas, right? But you've
Yeah.
saved us from the entire community from some serious missteps. And come to find out every time, kind of like dealing with my wife, come to find out she was right in the end. I'm like, wait, are you sure? Like, yeah. And then 6 months later, yep, Jeff was right. So you provide a very valuable service to our community. And I love hearing these stories, and I love that we had some extended time to spend today. But what else is on your mind? I know we've got some end of year stuff that we should probably
Yeah.
throw out there to be of use.
Yeah, so big one. The U.S. government has for years been forcing other countries to have what's called beneficial ownership registries, where they could go and look and say, okay, I want to find out about this St. Kitts and Nevis Corporation or Nevis or however you pronounce it. So you're going to go to their website and have a special login that the IRS could use to figure out who owns it. And so they've forced all these other countries to do it. including the European Union. Well, or a couple, about a year ago or so, the European Union came back and said, if you're going to force our companies to participate in your BOI registry, then we're going to force your companies to participate in a BOI registry because it's only fair, right? And so now we've got this thing through the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, or FinCEN, which is the Beneficial Ownership Information Report, or BOIR report, that's due every year. And it's important the sellers do submit it because there's two rules. One is it has to be submitted within 60 days of starting a company. That's for any company that was started after January 1st of this year. Or you have, for any company that was in existence on December 31st of last year, you have until December 31st of this year to file your what's called your initial report. And then every year you have a continuing obligation to file an updated report showing that there's been either changes or no changes. The penalties are pretty severe. It's $500 per day if you don't submit it. So it is well worth it to make sure that you have submitted it and that you print out a copy of your receipt showing that you submitted it once you do, because it is such a high penalty for not doing it. And that's applicable for corporations and LLCs, not sole proprietorships.
Gotcha. Yeah. So let's get a link in the show notes for people who are curious about that. Do you happen to know offhand what the website is where people can go and file that?
Yeah, it's fincen.gov. So fincen.gov, and then you'd click on the submit BOI return.
Gotcha. How complicated is it to fill that thing out? How much time do I need to set aside to fire that out?
It usually takes us about 10 minutes or so to fill it out. For companies that have more than one shareholder or member, if it's an LLC, it's going to take longer. The big thing is you have to have driver's licenses or passports from each shareholder. So that's going to be that's the biggest challenge for most. Like, for instance, we've got a family business that owns real estate, and it's me, my mom, and my brother. And we haven't been able to file ours yet because my brother can't seem to figure out how to take a picture of his driver's license and send it to me. So,
just have him hold it up on a chat on a,
no, it's
that's great.
It's because it's not interesting to him. So he decided it's just not worth his time to do it.
I get it. Yeah. It's just more that red tape paperwork silliness that we got to do, but
Right.
Sounds pretty straightforward to get it done. So we'll stick that link in the show notes for folks as well. Are you taking care of that for clients by any chance?
We were doing it complimentary earlier this year for people on retainer. We are also offering it as a paid basis for people that are not on retainer if they just want one-time help with filing it. A lot of accountants are refusing to file it because the CPA boards have come out with regulations saying that, if you file this incorrectly, you can be held accountable. And so a lot of them have basically just said, okay, we're just not going to file these at all because we don't want to get it wrong and then get hit with penalties. So to their license. So it's leaving it to a lot of lawyers to file it instead.
Interesting. Yeah. Something to do by the end of the year for sure. Anything else that's on your radar as the year's winding down that you don't want to wait till next year to take care of, besides putting you on retainer if they don't already? And what's your rate again to have you guys on monthly retainer? Remind me.
So it's $99 a month is our starting plan. And then we have different tiers that go up depending on what level of services people want. So like $99 is for one marketplace, that's Amazon or Walmart. Then we go to $150, and that includes Amazon and Walmart. And then we've got our priority tier, which is $250 a month for sellers that are interested in that service as well, if you want faster turnaround times. So,
you guys are doing reimbursements now for your clients, even at the beginning tier, lower level tier, right, on Amazon, which is a big deal. So there's two things I want to cover before we wrap up. Reimbursements, get me up to speed, and anything else end of year, because I don't want to lose track of that conversation.
Right. Yeah. So reimbursements, big thing that changed is in mid-October, they changed the reimbursement windows. So now you can only go back 60 days from when Amazon loses something or damages it in the warehouse. Previously, you had 18 months. So they've dramatically shortened the reimbursement timeframe. The other thing is that they're claiming that they will now automatically reimburse sellers for those lost and damaged items. The thing to watch out for is that, Amazon has had the ability to do this for ever since they opened, right? And they chose not to. Which is actually interesting because on the vendor side of things, they've been doing their own, reconciliations for years where they would do chargeback to vendors for not sending enough product in. So, they've had it internally, they've been doing it themselves, but they haven't been, working with third-party sellers. And so I would just assume that, you should still have your own service like ours going in there and submitting those claims because, the time frame is so short. And the worst that can happen is Amazon says, no, we've already reimbursed this claim. Whereas so it's a good idea to still be,
It doesn't cost
submitting
you
those
anything
reimbursements.
extra. It's just a new service you guys added on since you have teams looking at account health and that sort of thing. Hey, might as well do some reimbursements while we're in here.
Right.
Makes total
Exactly.
sense. It's a great add-on service. Yeah. So another good reason to put you guys on retainer. And, for those who are new around here, I just want to emphasize you guys aren't just legal help, because sometimes people get nervous, like, oh, legal help, I need a lawyer. No, just Amazon policy and health issues. You guys are expert there. If you need a legal letter, you guys can whip one out and fire it off if need be. But it's the Amazon policy experience and account health experience where you guys really, that's the bread and butter benefit for my team. I know as we sell and use your services. So just want to throw that out there. Yeah, absolutely. And so okay, let's talk about end of year stuff. Anything else besides the FinCEN?
All right. So that's the BOI return. Obviously, that's got the biggest financial penalty to make sure people are submitting it. But other, end of year checklist items that are always good to do, make sure that that your Amazon account has the right LLC name and tax ID numbers and information is correct there. Go in there, check, make sure your addresses are correct. I wouldn't necessarily start editing addresses at this point in time, because if you edit the address, you will most likely set yourself up for a postcard verification. During Q4, there's a lot of people buying stuff and there's a lot of people shipping things through the mail. Your postcard becomes very low priority when it's a first class, pre-sorted standard postcard, and the USPS has, buckets and buckets of priority mail that they're sending around. So I would just caution sellers, don't make any major changes to the account. We're past that point in time. At this point, it's, coast until January 1st, and then feel free to make whatever changes you might want.
Good tip.
It's other big things, in terms of end of year stuff is, looking at, things like insurance policies. Make sure that all of your stuff is correct, because, you're selling a lot of products right now. If you set up your insurance on Amazon, 10 years ago, when you were ABC Emporium and you never updated it, you've just been renewing the policy, and now you're XYZ, retail sales LLC, well, that's not going to cover you if you get a claim. So make sure you work with your insurance broker, someone like Ashland Haddon, and get that insurance, up to date, because, we're in the holiday season. People, sometimes buy things they can't afford, and then they look for ways to make money. And you don't want that to be you.
You gave a shout out to Ashland. I'll make sure to stick a link in the show notes. I think it's ecom.insure is her website. You have to do a review of your insurance. She's excellent. Actually, for a neighbor of mine, right down the street here, but she's well known in the industry, and she's made a great name for herself, good reputation. Yeah, good tips, man. Yeah. Anything else end of year? I'm building a little checklist for my team as we speak.
Bookkeeping is really important, of course. So making sure your books are up to date. I was talking to some sellers the other day, and they said that they actually have never used QuickBooks before, which blew my mind. They've been running a business for over 10 years on Amazon, and they've never used QuickBooks. And they're looking at finally hiring a bookkeeping service. And so, I recommend for people, it is a worthwhile investment for, the bookkeeping, but also just even if you want to do it yourself, because, there's so many things you could be that you might not be capturing deduction wise if you're just, only doing inventory or bookkeeping and write-offs based on inventory labs. So
good tip. I know we've got some announcements coming from you guys on that front. We've got Humminbird has some bookkeeping as well. Lots of good options out there. You don't have to do it yourself. But one tip I do, when the topic of bookkeeping comes up, the one thing I always do say is don't ask your accountant to do it, because you're going to be paying them $90 an hour to do $15 an hour work. Do the bookkeeping yourself. Let them do your taxes. That's typically my advice there. But yeah, good stuff. Well, what else is on your mind, man? Anything else? Any other interesting stories or cases that kind of help illustrate where we're at? Anything new? I know that the Section 3 thing, it's just kind of part of the normal experience now with Amazon. And as long as you've got good receipts.
Yeah, we're seeing Section 3 cases probably, 5 to 6 a week now come in. Mm-hmm. So, that sounds like a large number. I mean, it is, a large number compared to the number of suspensions that we used to deal with, probably, even 6 months ago. But a lot of them are resolving themselves. So as long as your documentation's in order, you bought from good sources, you're totally fine. Yeah, big things that have caused issues for people is anything that, resembles, money laundering or washing of, laundering of products. That's going to be a huge red flag. So Amazon wants to see that everything matches your account and that all that stuff is legitimate. So for instance, if you're having your credit card bills sent to your prep center, that's going to create a problem for you. If your address on your prep center, credit card statement doesn't match your bank statement, which doesn't match Amazon, so you want to really make sure everything is harmonized, but of course, like I said earlier, don't change it till next year. Although things like the bank statement, you can go ahead and change now.
But
So,
here, I actually saw this question the other day, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer because I know, we send our inventory all over the place.
yeah,
The ship to address doesn't really matter that much. It's the billing address that they're going to look more at to make sure that it was really you. Because I may ship some of my inventory to one prep center over here, another prep center over there, a neighbor who's helping me prep over here. But who paid the bill is what matters more. And does that credit card match up with a card that has your name on it, right? Is that all correct, or is there some more nuance there to be concerned?
So there's a little bit more nuance just because the ship to address matters a big deal for Amazon now. When they want to see, because what they want to see is if you buy 5 printers from Best Buy and those get shipped to your prep center, and you live in Indiana, but your prep center is in New Hampshire, they want to see that, yes, it'd be great to have the bill to say Indiana, because now that ties it to you. But so that's what Amazon calls internally the purchasing party information.
Mm-hmm.
But the shipping party information, that's where the products were sent. They want to see that matches where the items were sent to Amazon from. So they want to see that Best Buy shipped those items to an address that matches the ship from address on your shipping plan.
Sure. So prep centers are legit that way. I mean, if a prep center then transfers those units somewhere else and then ships them in, we've lost the paper trail at that point, and there's some trouble. But prep centers in general are just fine. That was the heart of the question. If you're using a prep center, as long as they're the same address that's shipping it back out.
Right. Yeah. You just need to have continuity. Same thing goes with people shipping stuff to their friends. I get asked this question probably every other week now, where they say, I want to ship stuff to my friends. How do I do that? And the answer is, well, you ship it to their house like you normally, like you choose them as the ship to location. But you have to create the shipping plan for those items that you ship to their house separate from your own, because Amazon's not going to just take your word for it that you drove 20 minutes down the street to pick up the items and drive them back to your house. So the shipping plans need to match. And then the same thing goes for, names need to be real for people. So, I had one seller who was making up names to try to get around buying restrictions at different websites. Amazon basically came back and said, prove to us how these people are related to your account. And 5 of the 7 order names were fake.
Oh,
you had no proof. So
yeah, the website has an order quantity of 8 and I want to order 40. So I'm going to make up 5 names.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, you can get that. Makes total sense. That names are like, hey, who are these people? Where are they? Prove that these are real people.
Correct.
That makes sense. Yeah. Again, playing by the rules, with dealing openly and transparently and honestly with your vendors even is going to pay off. But creating deception at any level is going to come back and get you at some point. Because that's what counterfeiters do, and people selling illegal inventory. Right. That's what they do, and you're going to look like them. You're going to look
exactly
like them, even if you're not.
Well, I had a seller, he got suspended for failing an identity verification with Amazon because he was using one of his family members' addresses. He was from outside the United States. He put his family member that he knows as their address, as his home address inside the US. He then, put his business address as a PO box at one of these, registered agent services that forwards mail, so all the addresses he couldn't verify himself to it. And he was like, I don't understand. Why is Amazon doing this to me? I said, well, you're doing exactly what a money launderer would do. This looks like money laundering. It smells like money laundering. I'm like, I don't think you are money laundering, but at the end of the day, you need to be, have everything correct. And I'm like, you should have used your real address where you live, and go from there. There's no reason to be using your family member in the United States address, unless you're on a blocked country list, in which case you shouldn't be selling in the United States to begin with,
Exactly.
I had one of those cases too, where a seller reached out from Afghanistan and wanted to sell and was like, I'm not being allowed to open an account. And I'm like, and you won't be. So, this is not the business for you,
Right. You're in a blocked nation that Amazon doesn't accept because probably a high odds of fraud, that sort of thing. Wow. Well, I love these
Military isn't.
stories. I
Yeah.
love these updates. We do need to wrap this one up, man. I got another appointment
Yeah.
coming at me, but
All right.
very well spent every time we do this. Any parting final
Okay.
thoughts? Anything else you were eager to get out there for the listeners today?
So I would say, a lot of people have been talking lately about Amazon restricting brands and it being, this, Amazon's being harder and harder to make money on. We do see this every year in just a different flavor. So
Yeah.
each year there's a different flavor of what we call the Q4 cleanup. And
Right.
so my guess is, what we'll probably see is a relaxing of those boundaries in Q1, where items that were hard gated in say October might become ungated again in January. Historically, we used to always call, January 1st is New Year's Day, December 26th is Christmas, or December 25th is Christmas, the 26th is Boxing Day, and January 2nd is Reinstatement Day. And that's because Amazon will wait until January 2nd to start reinstating people.
Right.
So,
because now they don't, again, they're protecting the Christmas experience for their consumers, and that makes total sense. So they're gonna make it.
right.
They're gonna interpret very liberally the policies and who they suspend and how long they keep them suspended. I love that January 2nd reinstatement day. That illustrates it very well. Yeah, we've seen that for over a decade, man. It's kind of how they roll. I mean, we've seen years where they literally say no new sellers, period. Like that freaked everybody out, and then they eased that off too because they need the third-party sellers. I mean, we're 35-40% of the entire catalog, filling the shelves of their hundreds of warehouses. They need us. They know they need us, but they want to present a great product to their consumers too. It makes total sense.
Right.
But yeah, great.
I'd say there's one big thing we didn't say that we should talk about is just, if you're violating TOS and you haven't been caught by Amazon yet, the time to delete that was yesterday. Delete it when you find it. The answer is, don't try to sell out the inventory. I was talking to a seller the other day who, believes he bought counterfeit products. Amazon didn't audit him on it. And he wanted to know if he could sell through it. And I'm like, no, get rid of it. That's not the right answer, cause you're going to be held responsible if they do audit you. Similarly, if you know that you're on a listing that doesn't follow the bundling policy or the multi-pack policy, delete your offer, remove the inventory and just eat the loss. Because what you don't want to do is try to sell through it. And then tomorrow is the day that, one of their TRMS investigators decides, you know what, we're going to suspend sellers for this violation. And they write, the way it works is they write a line of code and they find all the sellers based on that code that hit the criteria. And then they just start going suspend just down the line. So, you don't want that to happen to you.
It's going to look so much better on your record too if instead of dropping the price and trying to sell out of that misbranded or generic ASIN that you knew you shouldn't be on, you recall it.
Right.
And when if they do go back and because they can retroactively punish you for having done bad things, say 6 months ago, but if they see the way that you got out of it, and you shared this story with me, they see, okay, you at least recalled the inventory, you didn't try to liquidate it out and move on with your life. You noticed the error. Now you're building a case that you operate with integrity, that you try to do the right thing. They're going to reward that and not punish you.
Exactly. Because it's at the end of the day, it's Amazon, if sellers get suspended for actually violating a policy, it's up to someone at Amazon to decide whether they feel comfortable with letting you back on the platform because, there's not a right to sell on Amazon. There's no civil rights involved. So it's a private company with a private marketplace. And if you violate their rules, that they and their own risk tolerance may say, you know what, this seller is too risky for us. Just like you as a seller can say, hey, this brand or this ASIN's too risky for me. So
good stuff, man. We need to do this more often. Appreciate your sponsorship and support of the community. You're serving with excellence, man. We love working with you and keep up the great work, Jeff. Appreciate you and your team very much, man.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely, man. And for those who don't know, we've been talking to Jeff Schick, just like the razor. JeffSchick.com is the website. Put them on retainer. If you're serious at all about your Amazon business and you're starting to maybe even branch into Walmart, put Jeff on retainer. It's going to pay for itself. It's one of those things that it's kind of like insurance. Hopefully you never need it, but when you do, you're so glad you got it. And it's going to save you a bunch of money, time, effort, energy, and headache. We sleep better at night knowing Jeff's on retainer, and you've helped so many sellers. Again, thank you, Jeff. Appreciate you, man.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
And for the listeners, this wasn't a typical episode today. If you're new around here, hanging out with us, hanging out with Jeff and I today, most of our episodes are interviews with successful students who have been through our training. And we'd love to have you come on into our community, check us out, listen to at this point, we've got hundreds of success story interviews with our students. Check some of those out. jump into the Proven Amazon course, give us a call. You can book on our calendar. Go to silentjimdotcom/book a call, all one word, and that'll get you on our calendar. Let's have a conversation about your e-commerce business. And again, if you want to check out Jeff and his team, go to jeffschick.com. Put them on retainer today if you're serious about your Amazon business. And we'll have another great episode for you very soon. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Now. Okay, so before we let you go for the day, I've got a very special couple guests, actually. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see them on the screen. I've got J.R. Cagle. This guy's been in our community for quite some time. And I've got a great sponsor from our community, Flash Pricer. Representative Jordan here is with us as well. And he's going to talk to us a little bit about Flash Pricer and what they've got going on. I'm going to turn it over to you, buddy.
Yeah. Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on, Jim. So Flash Pricer, leading repricer in the space for, hyper focused on Walmart for now. I think it's an, untapped market for sure. And definitely people who are using, more advanced tools like repricers to bring their businesses into like hyper growth are turning to Flash Pricer in general for their repricing needs. Just because nobody's really focused on that space for the time being in the repricing from the repricing perspective. But also we can do like a bunch of really cool things on top, which I think JR will let you know, like sort of how we stand out from the competition. Like anybody else who has tried to do repricing for the Walmart side has had like a pretty difficult time in general. The data that they receive on competition and stuff like that tends to be outdated and just incorrect most of the time, and we've solved for that. And so we're really helping sellers who are taking advantage of our technology and our software and our learnings. And my experience in the space of 15 plus years, helping them take their businesses to the next level through competitive repricing.
Outstanding. And just to set the room a little bit, Jordan, thanks for introducing Flash Pricer to us a little bit. And you guys have been at our events and, we've talked before, but you really are kind of leading the charge in Walmart seller repricing. And we've got a lot of Amazon sellers in our community. I would say the vast majority of listeners to our show either are or have at some point sold on Amazon pretty aggressively in many cases. But Walmart is emerging as the second place option. And a lot of people are getting really, really excited about it. And the tools are starting to develop. And that's where you guys are playing right now, the Walmart space repricing. And JR, who's on screen with us now, if you're listening, you don't see him, but he's been in our community a long time, a lot of Amazon, a lot of Walmart, a lot of success. He's really focused in on Walmart right now. And we brought him on today as a user of Flash Pricer to talk about his experience. Because we all like to talk about ourselves, but when other people start talking about us, it's easier to digest, right? So, hey, JR, why don't you talk to us a little bit about Flash Pricer? I have no idea what you're going to say. I just know you've been using it. I know that you're an advocate for them and you're having some success, but I don't know much beyond that. So fill me in. What's this tool doing for your business on Walmart?
Yeah, I've used it for a little over a year. I had originally tried the Walmart repricer. It works, but I was still losing the buy box a lot. It wasn't really a repricer that kept as competitive as I needed it to. So I've tried out this, and it does a good job of getting you the buy box and what have you. It's got the algorithm to where it'll adjust prices up and down, and you can set your minimum and maximums that way. Obviously, it won't go too high or too low. Another nice thing too is since you're putting in your buy cost and everything, it'll calculate your profit for you also. So you can see what profit you're looking at based on the price you're at. So that's nice in case you don't know it off the top of your head. They added a few features since I've used it. One of the nice things I do like is it'll track your sales for 30 days. So you can put in any SKU or any keyword. Like I sell a lot of coffee. So if I want to type in coffee, it'll show me all my coffee sales, all my SKUs. It'll show me how many have sold in the last 30 days. It'll show you the buy box of whether or not you have it, whether or not somebody else has it. It'll show you your competition. And you can get over to the Walmart page with just one simple click. So all that is very nice to have. As far as I don't remember if I already mentioned this or not, but it's constantly repricing. The one I was using for Amazon would only reprice 10 times a day, but this one's constantly repricing. So that's a very nice feature. And with Walmart, it's really important because unlike Amazon, what I've observed on Walmart is there's not really much buy box rotating. Generally speaking, if you have the lowest price, relative to whether you're merchant fulfilled or Walmart fulfilled, that is. Generally speaking, you're going to get the buy box. There's a bit more leeway with that on merchant fulfilled, depending on your location, for instance, and your shipping speed. But if, for example, you're battling for the buy box with another WFS seller, that's their FBA for those who don't know, generally speaking, it's going to go to the lowest price, even if it's by a penny. So it's very important on Walmart, especially as sellers have increased, it's very important to make sure you are getting that lowest price, even if it's by a penny, because that can literally cost you a sale otherwise. So that's a very important detail there. But it's a pretty user-friendly software. I've said many a times at the events, I am not a tech-savvy person, strangely enough, but it's pretty simple to use. I haven't really had much trouble with it. They helped me set it up and get it going there. And it's a useful software. Another little thing you can do, I put my source in my SKUs, so you can kind of type that in on your search too in the pricer, and it'll pull up all the ones with that little code in your SKU, so you can essentially pull it up by source. So yeah, it's got some nice features, and it's an effective repricer that will really help you to basically get the buy box. So yeah, I like it. And like I said, I've been using it for over a year now.
Outstanding. Yeah, thanks for that summary of how you're using it, man.
Sure.
We've got several users in our community that, like I said, have jumped onto Walmart, but they haven't really assembled the tools yet to maximize their results there. And I think this is going to help a lot of people make a decision to get you guys plugged in. While JR was talking, I looked up our link so I could give the right link to everyone for our community to jump into Flash Price if you want to check it out. silentjim.com/flash. That's the shortcut. Flash, like the what is that? Is he a Marvel character? I can never remember DC.
Okay, superhero.
There we go. The superhero Flash, right? silentjim.com/flash. That'll get you over there to the page, and if we've got a special offer at the time, you'll see it there. But yeah, Jordan, based on what JR just shared, what else came to mind? What else did he leave out? I know you're the guy that, your blood, sweat, and tears is invested in this tool, and it does even more things than what JR pointed out. Fill us in on anything he left out.
Yeah, I don't want to get too far into the weeds. I mean, just maybe just a little background on myself. I've been in the repricing space both from an Amazon and a Walmart perspective for, like I said, about 15 years now, working at multiple different SaaS companies, software as a service companies, just specific to e-commerce. So, just want to add that they're like this, the types of bells and whistles that come along with this type of software in general, just know that they come with like many years of expertise within like this specific industry. It's probably got, more than you can really think about right now, but like just to keep it bite-sized, right? Like we're doing everything that any repricer can do on the Amazon side, plus a lot more on the Walmart side. And that's just like, I want to say it's like pretty impressive, just because we get a lot less information from Walmart, and also the information that we get from Walmart is incorrect. The few advantages that Walmart has over Amazon's platform from like an API perspective and how we send and receive information from Walmart is actually that we can get the price changes up into Walmart way quicker than we can on Amazon. On Amazon side, even if you change something within your Seller Central account, from a pricing perspective, it takes 5 to 15 minutes to get that up onto Amazon. Same thing from a technology perspective. Pushing it through the API also takes 5 to 15 minutes. On the Walmart side, it's like within 3 seconds, we could get a price change up and into there. So once we realize that a competitor has actually made a change against you, we'll recalculate all of your strategy settings, recalculate your new price that we're supposed to be pushing into the system, and it'll be there within 3 to 5 seconds later, like once we've actually calculated all that stuff. And so that's a real competitive advantage there. And again, so like none of the other softwares or within the space are doing anything with regards to like category fees and backing into those fees with regards to like your minimum maximum selling thresholds. We can calculate all of your mins and maxes based off of your costs if you'd like within a strategy. And that's after all fulfillment, like WFS fees. Again, nobody can do that within the space. Even Walmart, you can't really calculate your WFS fees without using a calculator beforehand. There's nothing to do within their software. You can do all of that within our software before you ever list the product or before you ever reprice it. And we'll just set everything up for you so that you know your profit after your WFS fees and your fulfillment and your referral fees and all the rest. And so it's just like it gets pretty robust. But I think the main thing here is, it's important to have a repricer. I mean, not everybody uses one, at least to start. But I think once you have more than 5 listings, stuff like that, I would say it's important to use a repricer in order to boost sales and boost your revenue and your profitability. Because even if you're doing these things manually, you definitely cannot do them as many times throughout the day as a piece of technology can. And you definitely can't do it while you're sleeping. And even if you have a VA on it, they can't monitor 5 products more than once an hour or something like that. And so it doesn't scale, in a manual way. And so that's my pitch on like why you should use repricing software. It'll help you make more sales, but also can help you be more profitable. We do help push prices upwards as well. And we have since I guess I know, some of your following here is like introductory and sort of like getting started. We do have intro plans as well, which are, starting at $99 a month. And I'm sure we have like an additional percentage off discount for Jim's followings. And that's for, just for like a starter amount of listings. And you could definitely feel the power with just on our starter plan to get your feet wet.
Yeah, and we'll make sure that link is updated. silentjim.com/flash. By the time this broadcast is live, we will have made sure that we're updating that with the latest, whatever good offer you guys can put together for our loyal listeners around here. Really appreciate Absolutely. That. And it's one of those tools that really does pay for itself very quickly, especially I wasn't aware. Inside my mind, I'm thinking, I got to make sure my team is using this and knows about this. All you have to do is share your cost, your buy cost, and Flash Pricer calculates your minimums and maximums based on your desired window. Most importantly, the minimum, like what's the minimum I'm willing to let this thing go for? You don't have to do all the math yourself and set those minimums and maximums. It does it for you. That's huge. I think anyone who's tried to go in and set up a repricer before knows that that's a point of struggle. It's like a minimums and max. I have to do this for every ASIN? No, you don't. Just put in your price, your buy cost, and it does the rest for you. That's massive time saver. I love it. And a whole bunch of other features. You guys are being very innovative. And again, you've got a lot of time in this space. I appreciate that about you. You've been doing it a long time. I have a lot of respect for anyone who's been doing the same thing for a very long time, especially in e-commerce, where a year is like 7 years, right?
It changes so fast. It always changes so fast.
You say you got 10, 15 years in e-commerce in any area, I'm listening, dude. So yeah, it's great having you here, Jordan. I appreciate you. Any final thoughts from either from you, Jordan, or JR before we wrap this one up? I think we gave some people some good reasons to go visit silentjim.com/flash and check you guys out if they're selling on Walmart. What else? Anything?
I just wanted to thank JR for coming on and talking about his experience as well. I don't usually ask people to talk about software and stuff like that, but JR was like always really forthcoming about it and like gives us his honest feedback, and we try to work with him on.
He's always been a straight shooter, man. And like I said, a lot of people in our community. I think, how many of our live events, annual events have you been to, JR? Probably what, 9 or 10 of them?
All of them.
All of them, yeah. And we're coming up on our 12th, 13th. What are we at? I can't keep track.
No. I lost count.
It's the longest running Amazon seller conference in the world. And JR's been there since we were just a little group of people gathering in a hotel waiting room. Basically, it's felt like.
First one in Orlando.
That's right, man. It's so, yeah, a lot of folks are going to really respect JR's opinion on this. And I hope it has a really good impact for you guys at Flash Pricer, Jordan, as well as for our users here who can grow their business faster and automate things. That's what we're all about around here. So, all right. Thanks for your time today, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
To the listeners, thanks for hanging out at Silent Sales Machine Radio. We'll have another great episode for you very soon.